Hi. It's been good. Very busy, but very good. Everything.
Everything's being rearranged. You need help now that you're all done?
Yes.
Yeah, it's good timing on your part, Dina.
Oh, shoot.
Really good timing.
I always do that. My husband will unload the car or something, I'll go, hey, Richard, do you need any help?
Glad to be back.
So, yeah, so we're going to Oliver.
Yes, well, we'll do the Olive Garden. I think that's where we go.
So,
Okay, this is good. I'm ready for a good class tonight.
We're always ready. I'm up for some conversation about this.
Tony, I have a question for you.
one second. I just want to say hello.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us tonight.
It's just a personal question about what you say.
I don't know how that works. It's not-
Okay, well, the whole world knows about it now.
So make it public.
Okay, when you say, "Are you there?" When I hear that, I say, "Well, of course you are." Why would you ask that?
Because, okay, so here's the question, and we want to say thank you for joining us online. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for being there tonight. We're streaming live to the world tonight, and tonight, my name is Brother T. We're going to be talking about A Course in Miracles. You probably know that. That's why you're tuned in. We just want to say thanks for joining us. So already I'm getting peppered with questions, and this question is, when we say we have this little process that I've been sharing with our group here. It's like, okay, so I take a good deep breath and I turn within, and then I ask a question. So the reason that we ask a question is to start the dialogue, right? Start the dialogue, because the truth is that you're not by yourself, right? And a lot of times, people that are even atheists, eventually, if they get too far down the bucket, get to the bottom of that guy or that barrel or whatever it might be, sometimes they say, well, God, they still we intuitively know that we're not alone, right? But the confirmation that we're not alone is joyful for me, right? So when I start the dialogue, like when I pick up the phone and call somebody, they say hello, right? So they're answering. But they're answering because the phone is ringing. And what's the phone saying? Are you there? And they answer. Say, hello, yes, I'm here. What can I do for you? Whatever the conversation is, however they want to answer. I ask the question, are you there? Because that's my ringing of the phone call, right? That is why I'm connecting. I have to start the dialogue. We have to start the dialogue. Spirit's already there, listening, waiting patiently for us to get involved, to be connected, to be joined, and to begin to be braided over time. So that's what I came to after the experience I've shared with you guys, where I was having a conversation just like this one here. Well, obviously you can see that I'm here, so you're not going to ask me that question, are you there? Because there you are, I can see that. But when we turn within, it often feels like I'm the only one in there, right? I'm the only one that's in my mind, right? So I start the dialogue by recognizing that truth, that I know I'm not alone, but I like the confirmation. And when I ask the question, I have begun the dialogue, right? And I'm ringing the bell. I'm ringing that phone line. I'm saying, are you there? And then I get the answer, yes, of course, whatever might be coming through at that point, because I'm centering into that question, right? I'm decreeing in that statement that I know I'm not alone. I know that you're there. And I'm confirming it and asking for an echo, asking for confirmation. And I feel it just wash over me every time I do that. So that's a great question. Thank you for asking it, right? So let's do that now, each of us individually in our own way. So we're going to take a good deep breath, and you can join us at home as well. And close your eyes unless you're driving. Don't do that. But here we go. I must share with you that I am filled with gratitude this evening of the many, many, many blessings that this day has brought us, has brought for me and my experience of this walk today through the kingdom of heaven. Make no mistake, you can't leave home. You are where God would have you be. We are always where God would have us be, which is in the heart, in the very center, at the altar we join together, the very center of our being, in the mind of God. We are spirit. We are spirit. So we have adapted ourselves through our belief system and through our game of separation and through the tiny mad idea that we could play a game of separation. That it appears sometimes, often, and very convincing it is, that we are somewhere other than where God would have us be. But that's absolutely not possible. It's just not possible. So we'll accept that in this moment and say, here we are. We're in the upper room, which is this higher vibrational field of allowance and acceptance, that we are right here where God would have us be. And we are in recognition of who we are, God's perfect child, neither behind the point of perfection nor advancing toward it. And we are, we know what we are, which is we are that self, that beautiful, perfect entity that God has created, still untarnished and unchanged in any way from what God has created us to be. And so we are that now here in form and field in this dream, for lack of a better term, of separation, our dream of being somewhere else. And we're playing the game together. We recognize that. And so we also know how we serve. How we serve, of course, is through recognizing that spiritual truth, that absolute truth. We are removing the obstacles to the awareness of the presence of love as who we are, as the channel for its expression here in field and form, here in the kingdom of heaven. We bring the kingdom of heaven. When you see us, you see the energy of love being communicated, being expressed, and being enjoyed. We are free now. Shake off the day, whatever it tried to present itself as. It was perfect. Even if we don't yet now quite understand it, it will reveal itself in time as a divine movement of the mind of God. And while we push and force against it, we ultimately only distract ourselves and delay, ultimately, the recognition of who and what we are and how we serve. We are in the upper room. We have come now. We are here. We have come. We have come to this space, to this realization, to this very moment, this presence, this instant, this now, in full appreciation of the communication and dialogue that is ongoing and available if we but listen. So we're dialing in now, and we're asking our loved ones, our guides, our teachers, our friends, our dear, dear, dear loved ones, join with us. We say join with us. We feel your presence. We feel the love of all those who have tricked us into believing that they've left us. They have not. They can't. We can't leave them either. They are here. They are here. They are here. And in gratitude and profound appreciation, we say thank you. Thank you for joining us now tonight. Again, as we join here in the upper room in this wonderful opportunity to be together as friends, brothers and sisters and loved ones. It's truly amazing and so joyful. So here we are in this full appreciation as Christ. We release all tension. As Christ in perfect safety, we join together in unity. And let the voice of truth ring through to our hearts and bring us to that ability to recognize the miracles that are ongoing and everywhere. And we allow a shift of perception to be our experience this evening, that all indeed is well. And so it is. So it is. So it is. So thank you again for joining us tonight. If you are online, and my deep and profound appreciation for each of you here tonight. The A-team, right? You guys just don't give it up. And you reinforce my willingness to not give it up, to stay the course, to stay the course, stay the course. So this space has had many transformations this week.
Yes.
But we are glad to be back here again. Glad to be back here again. So we're on episode 27 of Raj, right? And it was actually February 27th of 2003, 20 years ago, yesterday,
Amazing.
when that episode was recorded.
20 years ago.
Yesterday, 20 years ago yesterday, when that episode was recorded. And the thing I love about this particular episode is he is bringing us right back to being conscious of mutually agreed upon definitions, right?
Yeah.
And the Course says that the game of separation that we're playing was really just a tiny, mad idea. And I love this because this mutually agreed upon definition, this acronym, really helps us to grasp now. We really, the depth of the acknowledgement of mutually agreed upon definitions and how they imprison us.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it over the last several weeks with Raj. He's sharing with us this profound teaching. It's very, very deep and profound and has so many levels of ability for us to grow and to begin to release our participation in the mutually agreed upon definitions. Right? Yes, sir.
So I just wanted to start off and kind of just what you're saying. I love this quote here, and it's so true. You know, in unity we teach our consciousness creates our reality. And he says, what you believe is true for you. I don't think it can be any more clearly stated that what covers up truth from you is what you believe, right? Your beliefs, whether good or bad, preoccupy your attention, coloring what is actually there, what is actually there, so that you don't see it. And a sudden shift in perception then is turning from that and going and seeing the truth, going to the altar. But I think this is so true that the MAD, it's coloring everything. We're not seeing that. We're not living in the truth.
Right.
It's all
Right.
covered up.
Right. And
But we believe it.
we believe it, and we also are using it as a tool
Yes.
to protect ourselves.
Yes.
I'm going to walk across the room, so I'm going to disappear out of the camera for just a moment, but I want to continue to talk about it. Mutually agreed upon definitions are the tool that we use to protect ourselves.
I have no idea.
We're protecting ourselves from each other. Right? We're protecting, we use this. We use this to protect ourselves from each other. So, can I borrow that? I want to read it to the audience at home again.
Yes,
if I
this is
can.
highlighted in yellow.
So what David was just sharing with us here, we can pass this around. This is a microphone.
Oh, okay. Hi.
What you believe is true for you. That is a very, very important statement. There are a lot of absolutists out there in the past that have taught the Course, none of this is real. None of it's real. So it's not happening. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. But I'm sorry. The author of the book is refuting that argument and simply saying, mutually agreed upon definitions and what we believe is the package of mutually agreed upon definitions.
Yeah.
Because they've been accepted by us at first by who, right? The people that are our parents or the people that were our caretakers when we were so young, you know, we trusted them. They were our source of love and they were our source of trust, right? So this week I was watching as we were having a meeting and one of the people on staff here brought his daughter with him and she just turned 2 recently and there was someone watching her. And we were in a meeting for a couple hours and so when we came back out of the meeting, she was down the hallway over here, the breezeway, and she saw her dad and she started running up to him and he was helping me. We were carrying something and because he wouldn't give her and pick her up, you know, because he was carrying stuff, she didn't quite understand. And she just started bawling. I mean, she was fine and playing and happy, but as soon as she saw him, she was really happy. And then when he didn't pick her up, what she was expecting, then she started crying, right? And so she didn't understand, right, that she wasn't being appreciated by her father, right? In that moment, that somehow, how could he, you know, it was a cry for what? It's a cry for love. It's all a cry for love. And we can certainly see it in children, but when somebody's cursing you, when somebody's throwing a brick at you, right, or shooting at you, it's pretty hard to say, well, that's a cry for love. I mean, you know, mutually agreed upon definitions is, no, that's the time to protect yourself. That's a mad idea. Mutually agreed upon definition is we protect ourselves. These ideas, from the very onset of our incarnation, begin to shape our belief system. And a belief is just an idea that you keep thinking or you keep holding on to. And so we start letting go of ideas that don't serve us anymore. When we're young, I laid down my blankie, you know, I laid down some of my toys. And later, as we mature on our spiritual journey, we start laying down even some of the relationships that we've had with other people that we can see were not really, they were holding us at a certain level of ignorance, right? And I'm going to use the term ignorance because it's so important to me to recognize that all power in the heaven and earth is yours to ignore mutually agreed upon definitions. Because mutually agreed upon definitions are the foundation of your belief system. We've all accepted how to behave in social environments where we're living. And we could go someplace else tonight and they would not accept this conversation or what we're doing tonight at all, and we could be murdered for it.
Yeah.
We could be absolutely murdered because we're sitting here talking about God as an entity that's not judging us and sees us as perfect, and that there is nothing we can do to offend that perfect love. It's perfect love. It cannot be offended, and it needs not to be worshipped. But it loves to be loved. It loves to be recognized. It loves to be called to and say, hey, are you there? Right? What you believe is true for you, and it begins to be reflected in this experience of this tiny mad idea, which is basically a dream of separation from the truth. Like at night, we sleep and don't know that we're still safe at home in bed. And so that becomes the foundation of our belief system. I don't think, he continues to say, it can be any more clearly stated that what covers up the truth from you is what you believe.
Yeah.
Right.
Amen.
That statement is
That's
huge.
It. That's
I
it.
wrote that down too.
Yes, that's a big
Statement is
that was
huge.
big. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yep.
Your beliefs, whether good or bad, right, preoccupy your attention, coloring what is actually there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So whether they're good or bad, okay, and do you have some good beliefs? Well,
Yeah.
of course you
Yes.
do.
Sure.
You try to adhere to those good beliefs, those mutually agreed upon definitions that make you feel safe, right? And are beliefs that you feel comfortable because it is what helps you feel comfortable and safe in all of your relationships with everyone around you, right? And sometimes, we'll get to that in a moment, but what is actually there is what you're not seeing it because you're giving your full appreciation, you're giving your awareness, you're giving your attention to something that's not,
False idea.
that's covering it up. It's covering up what's really there. What's really there? No matter how your brothers and sisters are acting,
That's a tough one.
what God sees
Yeah.
Tough one.
is their perfect innocence.
I know.
And when if they're not acting according to your bought into and committed to, mutually agreed upon definitions, then they need to be corrected, right? Or maybe they need to be punished, right? And maybe you're the one that needs to do it. Maybe they need to be canceled. Maybe they need to be murdered, you know? And the ego will take you all the way to that extreme. Make no mistake, if you allow it to. But you're the one who has the power to ignore it. You have the power of ignorance.
Wow.
You can use the power to ignore the conditions and the mutually agreed upon definitions that created those conditions that are part of us all working together to validate and support the mutually agreed upon definitions. So if that's coloring what's actually there so that you don't see it, then a sudden shift of perception, what's that? That's a miracle.
Yeah.
A miracle of sudden shift of perception is when your attentiveness to your belief breaks down suddenly.
Yep.
And how could that happen suddenly? Sometimes it could be in the middle of a crisis, something that you didn't expect and you're completely blindsided. The ego usually thinks that it can be in control of the very next instant of your experience, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next, because it thinks, quote unquote, it thinks, I'll say it again, it thinks, and it develops a belief system, supports a belief system based on the past, right? And the group that you're joining, or the family that you're joining, or the communities, or the country, or whatever your group you're talking about, where you agree with those definitions, a political party, another good example.
Yeah.
Whatever you commit to, right, is something that that you feel comfortable with, and when it all collapses in front of you, then there can be a shift of perception, and it's sudden. Who comes to mind for me is oh gosh, I said it right now. I just had his name on my mind just a minute ago. The author of Now, what's his name?
Oh, Eric.
Eckhart Tolle.
Eckhart Tolle,
Yes.
thank you. Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah.
Eckhart Tolle had an experience where, if you're familiar with his story, he wanted to he was ready to kill himself.
Yes.
He was going to commit
Yeah,
suicide.
he was.
And in a moment, just before he committed suicide, he could hear himself talking to himself. And the question came into his mind, okay, who is it that says that you should kill yourself? Is that a separate self? I mean, and he drifted off to sleep, and he had an awakening. His ego collapsed, basically. It just collapsed. He let go of his own belief system in himself, in the construct mutually agreed upon, the construct that he had mutually agreed to, that he was human, subject to sin, sickness, and death, subject to fear, subject to pain, subject to persecution, subject to being canceled, subject, all those belief systems that we're all wrapped up in, and it all just collapsed. And when it collapsed, he woke up. And what was there was a world that was no longer, his belief system was no longer coloring what was actually there. And he was seeing what was actually there for the first time in his life
Right.
in a new way. And he was able to stay in that present moment. And that's what we're working on. Now, he had a collapse of his belief system. The way we're doing it, with the help of Course in Miracles and each other and the teaching and the principles, what we're doing is wading in instead of being dropped off in the deep end. We're wading in by one at a time, removing the obstacles to the awareness of the presence of love. So what are you seeing as the obstacles from this teaching today? What are you seeing? What are the obstacles that you're dealing with that are masking, that are obscuring that are coloring what is actually there. Removing the obstacles to the awareness of the presence of love. In a word, what are those obstacles? In one word. I'll say 2 words.
My beliefs.
Nailed it. My beliefs. My beliefs. A Course in Miracles is removing the obstacles to the awareness of the presence of love. Now, if you'd have read that, you say, okay, I can see that. I mean, I think that, okay, that makes sense. I want to remove those obstacles. I'm willing to do that. But if he'd have stated right out of the page 1, you know, that, oh, we're going to remove all of your beliefs, you would have said, oh, I'm not going that. There's no way.
Right.
Your ego would have immediately, you would have flushed the book, right? Tossed it out. Yes. 1 second. There's a little microphone on that.
Okay. Okay, last weekend was my birthday, and my brother and one of my brothers and his wife came to visit. And they've been married almost 50 years, and she has always been critical of me, trying to engage me in little family spats, little things like that. And I knew they were coming, and I had decided that no matter what happened, I wasn't going to pick up the rope. I was just going to stay who I was. And I cooked all kinds of dinners and things like this for them, had it in the freezer, whatever. She has never been so loving to me in my life. And I said to my daughter, do you notice anything different? She goes, you mean about Aunt so-and-so, you know, treating you so nicely? And I said, yeah. And she said, yeah, it's kind of neat, isn't it? And I said, yeah. She complimented me how I raised my daughter. She complimented me on my home. She complimented me on my cooking. And it was real. I mean, because other people were there, and I said, how did you take her? You know, whatever. And I don't know if it's because I've grown up and so reflecting back to me is the good, or has she changed? I don't really care either way, but it was lovely. And I mean, we're talking 50 years.
Wow.
And she's Catholic. We even laughed about Catholicism.
Wow.
And it was like, whoa. And so the whole time I'm like, okay, God, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Because I felt like I was on a different planet or something, and I took them out to dinner with some other people, and we had real conversation, not just, hi, how are you, where are you from, but, you know, what do you believe in, you know, this kind of thing. And it was like, she complimented me to this person, and it was, this is cool, I like this. But my point in all this is this mad idea thing. Did I get the things out of the way? I don't know where it came from, but I like it, so I want more.
Right.
And so, and I don't mean more compliments, you know what I'm saying? I like this kind of living. There was another miracle, and I kept saying to my daughter, I said, this has been the craziest week. There's somebody that came to my dinner. I had like 15 people for dinner, and this person has never helped clean the table, ever. And I've known her for 30 years. She was the first one up to clean the table. And I'm looking, and I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
Right?
And it was just amazing. My sister, who has many, many issues, and she and I have been separated, but we finally kind of have been able to come together, because I had said to her, let's forget what Dad set us up. Let's you be you, I'll be me. And then if we don't like each other, we don't have to talk anymore. But we've been talking like once a week. We never did that. And it's been wonderful. She sent me flowers for my birthday.
Whoa.
And it's like, I'm like, okay, this is great. What's next? I like this. But I don't know how it happened. And I mean, I'm not trying to, I guess I am trying to control it because I like it, but I don't want to control it. I just want more. Is it because of this? Is it because of, I feel like I was dropped in another world.
Wow.
Well, I want to say this, what I'm getting, is that we are in a different world now. The energy of our planet, our entire solar system, is shifting dramatically. Things are indeed changing. We are in a different world. And people that are, whether they know it or not, are waking up to a different energy. I mean, literally waking up to a different energy, and maybe not even being conscious of it. But you're conscious of it because you're on this pathway and you've been studying and you've been coming to classes and you've been reading, you've been participating in a spiritual community. So you've changed. You've changed a lot. I've changed tremendously in the last 20 years. I don't recognize the person I used to be. So I've changed significantly. But there's something that's happening that we can't see visibly, but we are experiencing it through other people because we're seeing people everywhere who are becoming different. And while we're also seeing people everywhere who are waking up to their potential of being loving and the benefits of being forgiven and the benefits of being loving, it's working for them and they're changing, and it's working for us and we're changing. And there's also a group of people who are feeling so much tension and so much resistance and so confused about what's happening that they don't know how to act. And they're defaulting to being, well, not very good people. And so we're seeing wars and we're seeing an escalation of negativity at the same time as we're seeing an escalation of forgiveness and love. And it indeed is happening and has been foretold. And we know that it's coming now, and we're in that age. We're in that age. We're entering into a new age. And it's an experience that we can't really get the small egoic mind to grasp, and we don't need to. What I would like to say is, or at least for myself, is that I'm learning to bask in it and not to play in the other energy, to remember not to play in that, because it's easy for me to want to go into defense. It's easy for me to want to go into protection for people that are near me, right? To stand up for integrity and say, oh, you know, no, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. I mean, it's almost irresistible for me not to be vociferous and speak out about when I want somebody I feel like is not being a nice person, because you don't have to be a not nice person. It's just so easy to be nice, because the reward is so wonderful, right? And I feel so blessed to be with you in this community and to be participating in my own personal journey, and the people that have come into my life just in the last 2 years. More and more people, and I can feel this energy is just evolving, and I feel like I'm always continuously surrounded now more than I ever have been by this new energy, this miracle of perception, the shift that's happening. Do you mind passing that microphone to Jan?
Can I respond?
Absolutely.
You have been crying out for love for so long, and in so many different ways, and love has always been there. And as you just said, we've all changed in the process as we become diligent in doing the work that has been put before us. And so now your eyes are able to see. It's your birthday, everybody's going to come around you, and it's a great celebration. But this is even greater than that, because it's a love that you didn't cause to happen. Mm-mm. And that's why you know it's a God thing. Mm-hmm. And you can rejoice in it without having to control it, mm-hmm. without having to say, I want more. That's by saying I want more, that's still crying out for more love. I want more of that. And if you just come and sit in it and let love embrace you, feel that love for yourself. Just let it seep in. You're on the verge of an incredible journey, and I'm glad I'm there with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good comment.
Me too.
See how that works? And I loved what you said when you said, I don't really need to know why it's happening. I'm just recognizing that it's happening, and I'm glad it's happening. And there's a part of us that, there is an aspect within us that wants to know and wants to control, right? But our job as light workers, right, at this level of attainment, and I mean that sincerely, is to just say, I'll think about that tomorrow. I'm not going to worry about trying to control it or make it happen again. I'm just going to hang out and be who I'm called to be and look forward to the very next experience of my recognition of the movement of the mind of God, the miracles that are happening around me, and notice those miracles, because miracles are healing us all, right? And just because somebody doesn't understand it, doesn't mean it's not happening, right? It's happening for all of us. But it's such a sweetness when you actually kind of get it and you say, oh yeah, that Jesus taught me that. You know, I'm recognizing, wow, because then it becomes validation. You know, check the box. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And so in my experience, I've just continued to get more and more validation that this absolutely is the right place to be at the right time. It really is indeed. You mind passing that down?
Well, I want to thank Nancy for bringing up her birthday and all the good things that happened. I unexpectedly had a phone call from somebody I went to college with, and she wanted to know if we could get together for lunch. And she is presently living in Fort Lauderdale. And she and her husband drove all the way over here to have lunch with me. That's like a 2.5-hour drive both ways. And her husband said, so how long has it been since you've seen each other? And we looked at each other and we go, and she came up with 50 years.
Oh, wow.
And we exchange Christmas cards. Every year we give a Christmas card back and forth, but we have not talked. And there's no reason about it, because they've been very busy, and they were living in Westchester, so that they weren't near here, but they came down here this summer, and there she is. So maybe that's my moment, because that's really something.
Yes, it is.
So it was really nice. We had a lovely luncheon. They enjoyed it, and then they went home. Which
So
is a
50
long,
more, 50
long
more
drive.
years and you can do it again.
So,
Thank you for sharing.
Can happen.
It can happen.
So a sudden shift of perception is when your attentiveness to your beliefs breaks down and suddenly what is really present has a chance of registering with you so that you see truly. So that you see truly. And in that true seeing, see, you are not only able, but you're more than happy to release the belief that you were committed to, mutually agreed upon definitions, in order to continue to experience the joy of seeing what is true. Now, if we're holding a belief, as an example, that someone always acts the same way, then they show up and start acting completely different, right? We can note that, we can bless that, and we can simply say, something that I was believing about this person, just I can wipe the slate clean now, right? Because I've changed my belief system. Because what I did is I went from believing that who they were in the past is who they always are, and suddenly who they are in the present is who I'm giving my awareness to, right? And that person they're expressing as now was always there all along. Right? But it was covered up for them as well, because for some reason, they were operating. When we are operating in a place of defense, when we're operating in a place of projection, when we're operating out of fear, all of those things are a cry for love. And regardless of how they're showing up, whether the little child was crying because they were hurt, or crying because they were angry, or crying because they felt that they were being ignored and they weren't being loved. It's still one thing. It's still a cry for love. And it's our recognition of that. That's the only way anybody ever can show up for us. So how do we respond? We respond by being loved, by going within, and in that very moment, are you there? And asking the question, what's the truth? How can I be? What's the truth? You are seeing what is really there. You're beginning to see what that truth is. And in that recognition, you cannot but help to be loving. Because that blessing of your love blesses everyone, including you, right? Giving and receiving are one thing. One thing. So the next thing that he kind of rolls into, if we can continue, he says how to concentrate on error. However, to concentrate on error is only a further error. So if someone is acting in a way that's a cry for love, that we judge it as an act that's inappropriate, to concentrate on that, to focus on their what we're saying, bad behavior, is an error on our part, right? Because we're saying what they're doing is something other than love, right? The initial corrective procedure is to recognize temporarily that there is a problem, but only as an indication that immediate correction is needed, which is they're calling out for love. It's just a temporary problem because love heals all things. And so it's very temporary when we become the light, when we become the channel, when we become the expressive agent for God. When you see me, you see love. When you see me, you see the Father. When you see me, you can expect and know that healing is here. You see the energy of Christ. You see the Christ consciousness. You see who I have discovered I really am. You see who I have discovered that I really am. Because I can hold that. Because now I have let go of the false ideas, old beliefs. I have removed another obstacle to the awareness of the presence of love. It's right here in front of me. I will say it this way sometimes, Word, I am Word. And what is Word? Word, I am the energy of the Creator in action. Word, I am Word through the one I see before me. I see myself through the one I see before me. I see their perfect innocence, and I see it then reflected in me. I am removing the obstacles to the awareness of the presence of love. Word, I am Word through this body. Word, I am Word through this frequency. Word, I am Word through the knowing of myself as Word. These are all statements and declarations of you bringing forth through you and as you the Christ energy. The Christ energy. So now he's saying, oh, there's our word correction again. We talked about correction a little bit in the episode last week, right? So now he gives us, as we often do, this word, this topic. So we'll go here and play with it a little bit, but we're going to put the word correction up here in the middle of the board. And then I want to put over here something that I love. And I want to put over here this little bit of the identity. And so what he's pointing out to us now here in this early section of this lesson is that there's one self that we can give our attention to, or there's another self that we can give our attention to. What do we know about the ego? It is the thinking self. And this thinking self is pretending to be God, pretending to play God. It's pretending to know something. And what do we know that it knows? Nothing. It knows nothing, right? And so it looks at what's going on based on mutually agreed upon definitions of an idea, a belief system about correction, right? But this self completely blocks that off. This is only seeing it from this perspective. Mutually agreed upon definition, seeing correction, something needs to be done. And there's another wonderful word called justice. And now we've added some more white magic to it. And that would be calling it, it's social. It's not my idea of justice. It's social justice. In other words, There's a whole group of people with mutually agreeing upon what this form of justice is. Do you see that? Huge group of people saying that, well, would you vote for social justice? Or, I want to join that group because I can trust it. Why? Because it's not just little old me over here by myself. It's a whole gaggle of people. They must be right, so because so many people are agreeing with it, this must be a good idea, mutually agreed upon definition of the way people are supposed to behave. And so let's bring about action to bring about justice. It's hard for me to ignore this very ripe opportunity to see how this leads to war.
Yep.
And more people are piling on. We're socially, we should be protecting this tiny guy over here. There's no justice in what's going on. So we're going to pile on. But this is all a self that is absolutely insane. And if you've ever noticed a large group of people buying into some false idea, that insanity can grow and grow and grow, and war is mutually agreed upon by everybody in the group. And it leads to unimaginable, countless death and destruction of cities and towns and countries and people's lives. And we're all doing it because there needs to be a correction and justice needs to prevail. To me, that's just the perfect example of the slippery slope. And when you get down on that slope and when it's really slippery, if somebody doesn't throw you a line, you're just going to keep going. And where you descend into is hell.
Yeah.
Hell on earth. Right here in the kingdom of heaven. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to read something here about that. Maybe you can help me unpack it just a little bit. I think I understand it, but this is Raj material. So this is on page.
I'm going to turn, the microphone is right there.
Oh, right there, okay. This is on page 7, the Raj material, talking about correction. Since you are all emerging from an ego frame of reference, it's very hard for the word correction to be misunderstood. You have what are called houses of correction, don't you? These are places where punishment is brought to bear upon those who were found guilty. But can that be what correction means as we're talking about it? The recognition that there's a need for correction is interpreted by the ego, the voice for fear, as a call for punishment. Justice, in other words. But the voice for truth expresses the call for correction, and it's calling for healing. It's calling for a sudden shift of perception.
Yes.
Yes, miracle. Right. Right.
Miracles are healing
Miracle.
for
It's
everybody.
healing.
I know it doesn't
I know.
feel
I know.
like, wow, you mean we shouldn't do anything about this? If you want to do the maximal amount of, I mean, let's just start with the premise. The premise is that's not good.
Right.
War, no.
Okay.
That's the premise, right? I mean, I think we could all agree on that.
Yes, no.
I don't think anybody breathing thinks that,
No.
war's good,
No good.
right? For anybody,
No.
right? But the point is that we agree on this. It does feel like, justice is called for, that we should be doing something. But what we're learning is that what we really need to do is what?
Extend love.
Course in Miracles
I need
says
do
you
nothing.
need do nothing. Except when it's what? What's the exception to that principle? Anybody remember?
The exception?
What's the exception to you need do nothing? There is no exception to you need do nothing.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Just tripped us up there.
Even war.
that was a trick
It was a
question.
trick question. Thank you very much. They're laughing at us.
Trick question.
All the people at home, they weren't stumped by that
Yeah,
question.
that was a trick question.
You need do nothing. Well, what about justice? What about social justice? Do you not know people that are beating that drum right now?
Oh, yeah.
Right? And sometimes they're in political movements, sometimes they're in spiritual movements, sometimes they're just in a gang movement.
So you just sit there and do nothing?
You are not a nice person. You're telling me that you're not going to get up and help us? You're not going to commit your children and your dollars? We've got to go win to stop it. And that
Oh, boy.
is insane, and that is a lie, and I'm sorry if you disagree, but that is the truth. And we disagree with the truth all the time because those disagreements are beliefs that are obstacles to the awareness of the presence of love. And we, in this room, just the few of us here, can practice this and have a bigger impact on that than all the money in the world. I will not commit my grandchildren
No.
to another war, and I'm hoping and praying that their parents will not allow their children to be involved in another war. But that's their free will. They have the free will to do what they are called to do. But I am called by my brother Jesus through A Course in Miracles and this teaching of truth to do nothing, regardless of how many people hit me with a brick for doing nothing. And what should I do when people hit me with a brick? Oh, we've heard this one before. Turn the other what? What's that mean? What is that? That's what that's saying. When, turn the other cheek is you need do nothing because your strength lies in your defenselessness. We don't need to defend anything. But the leaders who have bought into this insane concept that they're smarter than everybody else and they're more powerful and they should be honored in their construct because they've done the work. That's why they're leaders. That's why they're there. You should honor that. We're on a pathway to correction and punishment of God's perfect children. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's go kill them. Now, God's not judging you because dreams have no effect. But we have the power here to withdraw our vote. And we can vote with our feet, and we do vote with our feet. We have the power to withdraw our power, which is giving something, anything, our full appreciation, our full awareness, because energy flows where attention goes. And if we focus on war, then we are adding to it and making it more powerful. And that puts us in a kind of a bind, maybe with our brothers and sisters, maybe with our family, maybe with our spiritual community, maybe with our political community, maybe with whatever mad organization we're involved with, mutually agreed upon definitions, that this is justice is insane. Can we agree on that? Can we part of that? Can we be part of that group? And ask more people to join us. To start standing up For nothing. What do you stand for? Nothing.
Nah. Yeah.
And I do. I stand for nothing. Because,
And you do it well.
thank you. She said I do it well.
You do it well.
And because the other thing here is an opportunity to be connected with
Yeah, the
Integrity.
love.
Yes.
a connection with the self, capital S self, that knows that this is the only thing you've ever done anyway. Really. You thought you were doing something, but you were just creating obstacles to the awareness of the presence of joy, and you traded it for hell. Who did that? Anybody that supports this mind, this thinking little gnat self that we give all of our attention and awareness to. So punishment now is seen as a solution of correction on this side. And so what is the solution, what is the correction on this side?
Forgiveness.
It's forgiveness,
Forgiveness.
my friend.
Forgiveness.
And that is actually an forgiveness. Forgiveness is the action. Forgiveness is the action. And what does it require of you? To withhold judgment. Because when you put judgment on anything, you are doing something. But when you withhold your judgment, you're doing nothing. And that is truly the foundation of forgiveness. Moving back, right, before you gave judgment. Seeing the perfect innocence, even of our brothers and sisters who are still caught in this trap. And this is just a trap. This is a prison. But they have the opportunity, they have the ability to open the door and come over here and join the party. But if we don't help them realize that the party is already happening and going on by standing for integrity, by joining in with love, by expressing love through forgiveness so that nothing happens. What happens when nothing happens? Well, war doesn't happen when nothing happens, because war is something happening. Correction is not punishment unless it's seen through the eyes of the ego. Correction is healing, because miracles are healing. Forgiveness is healing. Integrity is healing. Love is healing. And the only thing that's really being healed is the illusory construct that there's something else other than that anyway. What is real cannot be harmed. It cannot be destroyed. It cannot be changed. Right? The words at the beginning of this book, your past learning must have taught you the wrong things. This comes from the textbook, chapter 8, section 4 and 5.
Chapter 8.
Page
Your
25.
past learning must have taught you the wrong things simply because it's not made you happy. War doesn't make you happy. And if what you're being taught and what you agree with, your mutually agreed upon definitions of what's right and what's wrong, leads you to war, it's definitely not going to make you happy. On this basis alone, its value should be questioned. If learning aims at change, and that is always its purpose, are you satisfied with the changes you're learning? Dissatisfaction with learning outcomes must be a sign of learning failure, since it means that you did not get what you want.
Where does that say that?
What page are you on?
You could go to the text,
No, page 25, right?
chapter 8,
Chapter 8?
page 4 and 5.
25.
Chapter 8, Page 4 and 5.
Oh. Okay.
Or you can go to the very front of the book, right in front of the contents,
Yeah.
right there.
Aha.
So he says here, dissatisfaction with learning outcomes must be a sign of learning failure, but simply because, since it means that you did not get what you want. We get that. The curriculum of the atonement is the opposite of the curriculum you've established for yourselves. So the atonement is another one of those words for correction. And when seen through the eyes of social justice, when seen through the eyes of the thinking self, when seen through the eyes of the insane mind, when seen through the eyes of fear, it means that God has judged you. Potentially, it can mean that God has judged you, and it's going to mean that you're set up. You set yourself up for punishment. And what do we call that? Well, if God's doing the punishing, it could be hell forever and ever. Amen. What a horrible construct.
Really?
What a horrible construct. No, the atonement through the eyes of discernment, through the eyes of being joined with your true self, is simply a chain of forgiveness. And every time there's a forgiveness on your part, you're the bringer of the kingdom of heaven, where every time you act out in forgiveness, a miracle has occurred. Every time. Because it's a shift of perception from fear to love. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So continuing, if the outcome of the curriculum of the atonement is the opposite of the curriculum you've established for yourselves, but so is its outcome. Hell versus joy. I think it's a pretty simple choice. Doesn't require a lot of thinking.
No, it doesn't.
And it doesn't require, it's nothing, you need to do nothing.
Right.
But to be aware that the choice is yours. That's
Yep.
so important. If the outcome of yours has made you unhappy, and if you want a different one, a change in the curriculum
Oh, yeah.
is obviously necessary.
Yeah.
So the curriculum then is to be listening to the voice for love instead of the voice for fear. And it looks like a big, thick book.
Yeah.
Because we need to look at it over and over and over in all these different ways, because this construct of justice and mutually agreed upon definitions and belief systems over here, that something needs to be done, and there's madness and protection and projection and all this insanity, is really convincing, because everywhere you look it appears to be real. Just like everywhere you looked last night when you were dreaming, it appeared to be real until you woke up this morning and you said, oh, well, that was just a dream. Yes, ma'am.
This is a little bit esoteric, I guess, for me. If you use the example of, say you love animals and you want to help animals and you want to love them, if you go and get a puppy or a cat or whatever and bring them into a loving environment, is that still like being part of social justice? Is that still part of coming from ego?
What do you think?
Well, I think that it shows it's an action, but it's done lovingly to bring joy, to an animal, to save someone from the sadness of this, to bring them into this.
So let's take a good deep breath. Let's turn within. Let's check in. Are you there? And let's ask the question. That's a great question that Nancy's shared with us. So we're going to turn within to the altar and ask a question. Here's the question. What is the truth? And I want you to sit with that for a minute and feel what you feel. Hear what you hear, feel what you feel. What is the truth? Are we practicing social justice, when we're rescuing and meeting the need of some loved one, animals, human or otherwise? Or are we being loving? Are we answering our own call? So let's sit with that for just a moment. And anybody that wants to share what's coming for you, feel free to speak up. How do you feel when you go rescue an animal? Does it make you feel special? Is that why you're doing it? You're feeling special? So that people will recognize you and your mutually agreed upon group of friends?
The way I'm understanding Nancy's action, to me, it's extending, it's offering love, it's giving love.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I
agree.
mean,
I agree.
Yeah.
See, what we talked about last week was meeting the need,
yes, right.
right? So what is meeting the need? It's seeing where there's a need.
Yeah.
When I see animals at the animal shelter, my heart just
Yeah,
pours
that's
forth
tough. That's tough.
that there's a need, right?
I don't go there.
I was participatory in a bit of an intervention recently with someone who was just in a place of sincere confusion. They were walking downward toward the bottom of the barrel, slowly but surely. And sometimes we convince ourselves that we find ourselves in a place and there's no way out. And we've all known people, and all of us at some point in our life have considered, at least had the thought of suicide, or of just letting everything go and not participating anymore in this journey of continued effort to survive. And some people, because of whatever circumstances may be, find themselves getting now, like Eckhart Tolle, to the bottom of the barrel. And some people fall through and then, start again. We're here in the classroom. All of this, the entire incarnation and experience that you've had in your incarnation has been, you've been in the classroom the whole time, right? And you'll still be in there tomorrow, right? Until we ascend to a point of self-realization and we solve the riddle. We've removed all of the obstacles to the awareness of the presence of love, and we become joined and braided with love itself, with our higher self, nothing more than your right mind, the Holy Spirit, and become that expression. Become that expression in field and form. This person found comfort with 3 dogs. And because she found that as the only method of solace for the situation, she knew she needed to get help, and she knew that she needed to make things different, and people were offering some assistance, some pathway, and some support, some love, and wanted to help and meet the need. She couldn't continue on that journey without letting go of the only thing that was bringing her any sense of love, which were her pets. And so we can be stuck in a pattern of thinking that love is outside of us, and it's out there in this thing or this person or that person or this relationship or that thing, and keep ourselves held down. And it's okay, because we have free will, and we're not being judged by spirit. But there are certainly some mutually agreed upon definitions that that's not good. And there's also some mutually agreed upon definitions that, well, that's their journey. We just let them go. We don't need to do anything. I mean, they're going to figure it out. They're going to get it all, just let them go. Well, sometimes they don't. And sometimes they don't rise back out. They go into nothing and transcend. My younger brother did that. He drank himself to death. He was, I think, brilliant and beautiful and talented. But he followed a pathway of allowing drugs or whatever else he was getting involved with, and relationships caused him to get to a place in his life where he lost his right legally to be close to his natural children.
Jeez.
They ended up getting adopted, and the court system said, no, what's the proper correction and the right justice is that he should never see those kids again. He should never influence them again.
Wow.
Now, we have a judicial system, that's really wise. And because he could never forgive himself,
Yeah.
he could not get out of the bottom of that barrel. And for brief moments, he could be sober for a week or two, but the destruction that he'd already inflicted on his body was so severe that the pain was so hard that the only way he could find and feel any sense of normalcy was to start to drink. But once he started drinking, he couldn't quit drinking. And the doctor said, you might get out of the hospital this time, because that's where he would end up, in the emergency room. But there's going to be a time when you check in and you're not going to check out.
Yeah.
And I sat with him the night that he passed away. And I blessed him and loved him. And I still love him. And that's who I was thinking about when we first started talking tonight. That he's still with me. And he's still with us. And I can't wait to be back in an ability of recognizing that more profoundly.
How old was he when he passed?
He was only 50.
Oh my, 50?
50, yeah. Right. So we have to sometimes do the best we can to meet the need, but we don't have a right to imprison people in a state of suffering. They get to decide how that's going to be. And sometimes the loved ones around us, around some people, cause them to stay in that, because they don't want to give away just a little bit of love that they're getting out of the world is the last sense of hope that they have, that at least I got that, and I can't let that go. Just like when I was a little kid, I couldn't let go of my blankie. I didn't feel safe if it wasn't with me. We try our best to meet the need, but we have to let people choose their journey and take that journey. And if we stand with them, stand beside them, and support them, and animals, and friends, and family, and community, we do the best we can to meet the need. But in all cases, we can always turn within, check in. Are you there? You hear that phone ringing?
Yeah.
Are you there? What's the truth? How's the best way for me to be loving? Sometimes it's just to let people live their life, because we, through our best intentions over here, see that maybe there's got to be a better way than the way that they're going. But sometimes the way that they're going is exactly what they need, but we still do our best to meet the need when we feel called. And we're going to know it if we stay in communication here, because sometimes you might hear this in your moment of silence and meditation. What should I do? In this situation, just be love. You need to do nothing, but be loving.
Yeah.
Be loving. Because that's exactly what's needed, to let people be who they need to be in those moments. So we're not being corrective in the sense of being special. And if we have a motivation, if we have a motive, and we know why we're doing what we're doing. We always know what, and we know that when we're doing it out of fear, or we're doing it out of being protective, or we're doing it out of judgment, or we're doing it out of trying to fit in to a mutually agreed upon group of definition of group of what being normal, being accepted, being loved is. And we fall for that. The ego falls for it easy. The ego does not know the truth. And its foundational principle is seek but do not find. And over here, the foundational truth is everything is already yours. There's nothing to seek. But there is something to awaken to. There is a realization at hand that is yours. But you got to do the work. You got to remove the obstacles to the awareness of the presence of who and what you are. Of who and what you are. So we talk about correction. I love this first paragraph too, and I'm just in the foreword, right? This course is a beginning, not an end. Your friend goes with you. Who's your friend? Capital F friend, capital G guide, capital T teacher, the Holy Spirit. Nothing more than your right mind. But also Jesus is your friend. Jesus is my friend. He said, I will always be with you. And I think that he is, people say, okay, milk is is it marijuana is a gateway to harder drugs?
Yeah.
Right? Well, I think milk is a gateway to harder drugs. Almost everybody's had milk in their younger life, and that's what led to it. I think Jesus is a gateway to self-realization, right? And has been. But when it's misunderstood by this mind, which is not capable of grasping this teaching, not truly, it just has to get out of the way. It can lead to some pretty insane ideas about correction and social justice. Right? And I'm just pointing that out tonight.
Yeah.
So this course is a beginning, not an end. Your friend goes with you. You are not alone. No one who calls on him, capital H him, can call in vain. Whatever troubles you, be certain that he has the answer and will gladly give it to you if you simply turn to him and ask it of him. He will not withhold all answers that you need for anything that seems to trouble you. He knows the way to solve all problems and resolve all doubts. His certainty is yours. You need but ask it of him, and it will be given you.
Well, that's the course right there.
That is. That's the foreword.
That's it.
You are as certain of arriving home as is the pathway of the sun laid down before it rises, after it has set, and in the half-lit hours in between. Indeed, your pathway is more certain still, for it cannot be possible to change the course of those who God has called to him. Therefore, obey your will and follow him who you have accepted as your capital V voice, to speak of what you really want and really need. His is the voice for God, and also yours. It is your voice. And thus he speaks of freedom and of truth. So that's the very beginning. That's the foreword. That's a miracle right there. Just getting that. sets you free. Because what we ponder and spend our time with are questions about this insane experience of what appears to be the world outside of us. The world outside of the upper room, the world outside of this community. Troubles abound, yes. But as we've read tonight, the only purpose of even the word is just to recognize that there is trouble and to apply the proper correction. Not punishment, not atonement as a pathway of correction in the form of punishment, but atonement, the chain of forgiveness, as a pathway to self-realization. And in your self-realization, the world is healed. I'll say that again. In your self-realization, the world is healed. You are the salvation of the world. And he says this to us over and over and over. And how do we know that's true? Because in his self-realization, we've been healed. And what's the healing? We are found our way to the pathway of truth. And it influences and affects everything we do and have done, and can be seen in a completely new way. And so now we're acting out of real correction for ourselves. We don't know empathy, but the Holy Spirit does. We don't really know compassion, but the Holy Spirit does. We don't really know justice at all, but the Holy Spirit does. So if we want to know the answer to all of the myriad of things that we call problems, we only need to sit down and shut up. And I have to remind myself of that continuously. Because I need to do nothing. And if I'll just do that, the day will come. And it'll surprise me that things were already being corrected, but they were being corrected through the application of love. As long as I don't muck it up by getting in the way of it with my own thinking about what is supposed to be and who is supposed to act and how they're supposed to act, mutually agreed upon definitions, and all this bullshit. So again, we end as we began, with deep gratitude. With deep and profound gratitude. We're only getting into one or two paragraphs of this episode, and there's a lot of great stuff in here. We'll keep moving on. Next week we'll do episode 28. But there is much to celebrate.
Yes.
There is much to celebrate. This is changing us and is changing our world. So let's take another good deep breath here before we close. This is in the Manual for Teachers. And since we're talking about healing, I'm just going to read a paragraph or two. Is healing certain? Healing is always certain. It is impossible to let illusions be brought to truth and keep the illusions. Truth demonstrates illusions have no value. The teacher of God has seen the correction of his errors in the mind of the patient, recognizing it for what it is. Having accepted the atonement for himself, he has also accepted it for the patient. Yet what if the patient uses sickness as a way of life, believing healing is the way to death? When this is so, a sudden healing might precipitate intense depression and a sense of loss so deep that the patient might even try to destroy himself. Having nothing to live for, he may ask for death. Healing must wait sometimes for his protection. Healing will always stand aside when it would be seen as a threat. The instant it is welcome, it is there. When healing has been given, it will be received. And what is time before the gifts of God? We've referred many times in the text to the storehouse of treasures laid up equally for the giver and the receiver of God's gift. Not one is lost, for they can but increase. No teacher of God should feel disappointed if he is offered healing and it does not appear to have been received. It's not up to him to judge when his gift should be accepted. Let him be certain, however, it has been received, and trust that it will be accepted when it is recognized as a blessing and not a curse. Forgiveness sometimes can feel like a curse because we don't feel like we're worthy of it. We judge ourselves so harshly. So we close with a prayer. And again, thank you for joining us tonight online. Let's take a good deep breath. I see all things as I would have them be. Perception follows judgment. Having judged, you therefore see what you would look upon. For vision merely serves to offer you what you would have. It is impossible to overlook what you would see and fail to see what you have chosen to behold. How surely, therefore, must the real world come to greet the holy sight of anyone who takes the Holy Spirit's purpose as his goal for seeing. And he cannot fail to look upon what Christ would have him see and share Christ's love for what he looks upon. Father, I have no purpose for today except to look upon a liberated world, set free from all the judgments that I have made. Father, this is your will for me today, and therefore it must be my goal as well. I see all things as I would have them be. We are free. We are free. We are free. God is. God is. God is. We make all things new. Behold, we make all things new. It will be so because we make it so. And we choose in every moment how it will be by what we choose. We join together tonight as brothers and sisters and loved ones. We bless our community. We bless our families. We bless our brothers and sisters, wherever they may be, whatever they may fear, whatever they may decide to be. We bless them and say, we know who you are. We know what you are. We know how you serve. And so it is. Amen. 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 Thank you guys for being here tonight.
Thank you.
And thank you guys at home. I think our episode will end shortly. It's supposed to shut itself off here in a couple minutes. So I want to talk to you guys while I have you with me. And this may not involve you, so if you want to quit watching the episode, feel free to go have fun. So you guys, some of you here, you might know that I've retired from my post here at the community, and yeah, and I'm feeling a need to take a break for a while. So I'm thinking that I need to take the month of March off, and I may go to see friends and family, and I may go to a monastery for a little while, and I may go do some other things. But I would like to continue to travel with you through the teachings with Raj, and I would like to put a video out every week in this time slot where we are tonight. And I would beg of you to consider that as a temporary respite from this activity here at the
So you're saying
church.
reviewing the Raj videos, right?
We'll do the Raj videos, we'll do the Raj, episodes.
Yeah.
And I will create a video where I'm actually doing it like we're doing it here.
But
And I'll send it out every week and you can watch it.
isn't that a lot of pressure on you, though? Why don't you take a break? Why do you have to?
Well,
do
we'll
this?
see.
I mean, that's a lot of work.
Thank you.
I'm just saying you should take a break. We can do the lessons.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what I think.
Okay, well, I appreciate what you're
about
saying.
that? I don't know where he lives or what his thing, you had him here before when you were away, Tony sent,
Mhm.
would he come?
He might, he has his own group on Tuesdays and
He's so far away, it's.
he's about an hour and a half away, so it's a pretty big trek. And he started working with,